One of the themes that clearly ran through the morning was video and how everything in the market has changed dramatically. And one of those changes that is sort of most interesting to observers of the space is how Netflix is getting some serious competition. Matter of fact, it was rumored just this morning that it would be getting competition from yet another party, Walmart. We don't know if that's going to really happen, but what we do know and what has been announced is that a major player is very, very serious about standing up a significant consumer-facing video over-the-top service, and that player is Disney, and the person responsible for that service is our next guest. So please join me in welcoming Michael Paull to the Signal stage.
Thank you.
You're going to sit right here. Michael, thank you so much for coming. I think everyone is very excited that a company with the long history and the brand of Disney is tackling a very significant market that it seemed like there was one player who had just kind of won and it was over. But Disney has such an amazing amount of brands, such a remarkable family of brands. We all want to know absolutely every specific about everything you're doing. And I know that you can't talk about all the specifics, but I will ask you this: what can you tell us about what you're doing?
Well, I actually brought the business plan, and I was going to hand it out and take you through it. It's very detailed. That's my only warning. No, I mean, joking aside, there's not a lot that we are talking about publicly about the service coming next year. What we are talking about is that we will be launching the service next year. It will be a family-friendly offering. So the market positioning that we're going after, that we believe has real consumer demand, a real need, is a family-friendly, over-the-top SVOD offering. It's going to include all of our brands, from Disney to Pixar to Marvel to Star Wars. And we think it's going to offer an incredible user experience, both from the programming that we have created, the movies that we'll continue to put out, and the original programming that we're going to create based on all of these brands that have passionate consumers all over the world.
Yeah.
So that's mostly what I can talk about. We're really in the process of thinking about how can we innovate on the product, how can we innovate on the user experience to really differentiate this service and make it excellent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the brands themselves differentiate, and I imagine you could build 100 million plus subscriber business just on those brands, probably just on Star Wars. There's so many fans of that franchise. But the model that is already established out there is one where billions and billions of dollars are spent on original programming. Disney's already doing that. And where there are major production houses that basically do nothing but create spec shows that they will either sell to Netflix or they'll sell to Amazon or they'll sell to whoever. Is it only going to be Disney produced stuff, or are you going to also open yourself up to that sort of third-party marketplace, or are you going to tell me you can't tell me?
I think we're looking at a lot of options. At the end of the day, what we believe in is leveraging the great brands that we have, and we're looking at various options on how to bring that to consumers.
Right. Okay, I could probably repeat these kinds of questions for the rest of the time we have, but I'll spare you at least for the moment. But you have quite an interesting history. I came to know of you because of your work with a service, BAMTech.
Yeah.
And BAMTech was majority acquired by Disney. So tell us how you came into Disney and what is BAMTech?
Sure. So, I came into Disney through the majority-controlled acquisition of BAMTech. BAMTech is a digital media company. It's really a technology and digital media company that was originally started in 2000 inside of Major League Baseball. And what we were trying to do is solve a fairly simple problem that existed back then, which was bring baseball to fans. And interestingly, if you go all the way back to those days, a simple problem existed that still exists today. People who come from a certain city and have great passion and love for a team and move to another city didn't have a way to enjoy the games they wanted to watch. So for example, I'm from Los Angeles, I live in New York, I'm a Dodgers fan, and I wanted to be able to watch Dodgers games. So what we did was build a team and a technology to allow people to access out-of-market baseball games over the internet. And really, the reason we did it is people wanted it. It was a real complaint that we were getting. And we saw an opportunity because at the time, most people were thinking about, how can you download video? And nobody was thinking about how can you stream it. And certainly, they weren't thinking about how can you stream things live.
Right.
And that was a really, really interesting and hard problem to solve that we were able to do. And we launched our first OTT video product in 2002 called MLB.TV. Building on that success, we actually took on other challenges, including building HBO Now, building PlayStation Vue, supporting Fox Sports, Hulu we've done work for, and then of course Disney came to us and wanted us to do some work for them. So as we were building this business and really built an incredible capability at delivering products to consumers on a direct-to-consumer basis and streaming video content flawlessly and innovating on features, not just to mobile devices, but to a broad array of connected TV devices. We started to watch our business build and the momentum develop.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about BAMTech was two things. One, you don't look to major sports leagues to be innovators in tech. I mean, it just isn't where you might expect it to happen, but that's exactly what did happen. Was that because you happened to be there and your team happened to kind of coalesce around this, or was it an intentional thing that the company kind of disrupted itself? And that ladders to some of the issues we've been discussing already and the theme of the conference, which is how did you lead that disruption?
Yeah, and I joined later. So I think the way the company led the disruption was it saw a market opportunity. And interestingly, it wasn't going to cannibalize core business. So it was a unique situation where the company was able to pursue something without sort of all those innovators' dilemmas. Because the reality was there was a market need that wasn't being met, as opposed to, oh, we're seeing a shift in the business. When I came on board, I think by the time that happened, the reality was the shift was starting to happen, and now what I was brought in to do is really just double down on this business and accelerate it.
Right, right. Now you have this third-party business within BAMTech, and it wasn't like Netflix, which was solving the same problem. It was like, hey, we're Netflix, we're going to help you HBO Now, sure. Here's our tech, just pay us a little money, and you're now an OEM of our. But that was exactly what you guys were doing.
Yeah.
And I think there was some fear that with the Disney acquisition, that would go away, and there would no longer be a third. If P&G decided tomorrow they wanted to be an OTT service, they wouldn't be able to work with BAMTech and or Disney to create that. But you are committed to maintaining that business?
Yeah, we look at the third-party business as an important part of the overall organization. When I think about our ability to innovate, for our first-party services, right, I've got a product team that's thinking about how do we innovate for these services, and we'll deploy on those ideas. Maybe I have some good ideas here and there. But if I have a number of really interesting third-party services that we are actually working with and brainstorming and building great innovative products and features, now all of a sudden, our intelligence, our capabilities, grows exponentially. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, while I'm doing that, while I'm getting the benefit of all that innovation, I'm getting paid.
Bonus.
So yes, if P&G is interested in going down this road, we'd love to have the conversation.
Well, I think they'll see how the Katie deal goes, and then they'll start a subscription service, and everything is going to be coming up roses. Okay, now let me ask you a question which you may not have an answer to, but what the heck. Do you consider the new Disney streaming services business, that you're plotting for next year, and when you think about it, do you think about it as a Netflix killer, or is it a complement? Is it, well, we have these amazing brands, and Netflix is over here, but people are going to subscribe to more than one thing. Which way are you going, if you can tell me that?
Sure. I think actually Bob Iger was pretty clear on his vision for this, and I 100% agree with it, which is they're complementary services. If you think about the amount of viewership, the amount of time and eyeballs that is being spent in the OTT video space, it's enormous and it's growing. Therefore, there's room for a multitude of players. So I don't think there's going to be a winner-takes-all situation. If you look at traditional television, there was never a winner-takes-all situation. And I think the same applies in this space. So in my mind, we view it as a complementary service. Mm-hmm. I think that many people that are Netflix subscribers will subscribe to this service. Yeah. And interestingly, I remember when some of the initial press came out about this, Reed Hastings even said he was going to subscribe, and we look forward to his signing up.
Yeah, I'm sure you should probably charge him just a little bit more. I mean, it is a winner-take-most business, it feels like, when you have... Netflix has spent, I think, $13 billion last year on programming. Yeah. And they have a pretty extraordinary approach to it, which feels, you make a show for Netflix. I have a lot of friends who do this, and they have no idea how it will be distributed. They have no idea if it will hit. It really is up to this black box that Netflix has that puts stuff in front of people and samples it, and if the data says this is going to hit, it hits, which is very different than how Showtime makes a decision, for example, or HBO, which is they need to make sure this show they're spending this much money on is in fact going to pay off. Yeah. There are thousands of shows on Netflix that none of us have ever seen and none of us ever will see because Netflix never shows it to us, right? How do you think about innovating in that world of algorithmic UX-driven decision-making? So on one hand, I'm a big believer on data-driven decision-making, and I think as we build this business, we are going to instrument it really, really well and use the data as a feedback loop and make sure that we're creating the right programming and putting the right programming in front of the right people at the right times. That being said, one of the core competencies of the Walt Disney Company is actually quality content, quality brands. So if you look at their history and their success, or our history and our success, it's been on picking a smaller number of winners as opposed to going for a large quantity and hoping for a few. Yeah. So we will take the same approach with this service where we will look for quality over quantity. Yeah, I mean, that was much in the news over the last week. There's a lot of analysis, some of it I would say flawed, about the recent meeting with the AT&T CEO and the HBO crew about we got a bigger HBO, and everyone's like, no, don't do that. Keep making things like Game of Thrones. Don't make 40 knockoffs of Game of Thrones. Although maybe most of us would like to see at least a few of those because it's ending soon. It's kind of an unfair advantage to start with, like the entire universe of Marvel, the entire universe of Star Wars, all of ESPN, all of those. Now, ESPN already has a service. How is that going to be integrated with this, or have you not made that decision? Yeah, so they're separate. So we built the Espn Plus service and launched it in April of this year, and it's off to a really good start, and we're really excited about it. But we're viewing them as separate products and separate experiences. So the Espn Plus service, we actually integrated into the overall ESPN digital experience, because what we recognized is we had a big installed base of users and fans, and we thought, hey, we could satisfy their needs for additional programming, additional sports, and that's made a lot of sense. With regard to the SVOD service that we're launching, there's no such thing as like the All of Disney website, for example, aside from, I guess we have Disney.com. Right. So we're really going to create a very specific user experience for this set of brands, which has been part of the really interesting challenge that we've been going after. Got it. I'm going to ask a question I imagine everyone in the room is probably wondering, which is how can a company like P&G work with you in the future? Are you going to be working with marketers? Are you going to be co-producing, as we heard Mark and Katie talk about this morning? Do you have a model yet? Are you still playing with it?
Sure. I mean, we're open to a variety of models. You know, we're very intellectually curious, so if there are great ideas, we want to hear them. We want to explore them. We want to evaluate them. The ways that we have been working with marketers in the past, so I'll give you an example from what we did with Espn Plus. When we launched Espn Plus, we did a partnership, co-marketing partnership with American Express. And for the launch, we did an extended free trial for all American Express current subscribers and potential subscribers. So anybody, and it was brought to you by American Express. And we obviously promoted it through all of the media that we were doing to launch the service. They were promoting it through a bunch of the media they were doing on their acquisition and engagement activities. And it's been a really nice success. So on one hand, there's definitely an opportunity to work together to create awareness and to integrate brands and co-market. I think the idea of, we are going to be creating quite a bit of content, and in our traditional business, we've worked with brands in content creation, and I think that's something that we will, of course, explore. The SVOD service, as we're contemplating, is not going to have interstitial video ads, but Espn Plus, definitely, we have an experience. Most of the programming that's part of Espn Plus is live sporting events. And there are natural breaks, and we are integrating in a really, really good way advertisements. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going really, really well. So I definitely think there are ways to work together. And, and the other thing I'd say is, we're going to be very data focused. So
right.
As we work together, we're really looking to get to the right people at the right time, in the right mood.
Yeah. So are they.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You've had now a lot of experience, both at BAMTech and now with what you're building in direct to consumer. This is very much, on the lips of everyone here, thinking about how do I create a tighter bond and have teams who are really connected to consumers and using that data in ways to iterate quickly and revise products and messaging. What have you learned doing that? And what insights might you share?
Sure. I mean, I think building direct-to-consumer businesses, it takes a lot of work. It requires that you build trust with consumers. So when we talk about things like collecting data, I take it from the perspective of how do we use that data to delight consumers? Like, how do we focus on the consumer and everything that we're doing with the consumer? We're trying to do it to provide a better experience, recognizing we do need to build a business and we want to monetize the business, but I really believe to successfully build direct-to-consumer businesses, you need to constantly think about that consumer and you need to protect the trust between the consumer and the business. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, there is still a really big business called television, as we used to understand it.
Yeah.
And it's really important to P&G. It's really important to Disney. Where does that go? Does it go away? Does it stabilize and just become one of many distribution channels? What's the future of television as we knew it?
Well, I think television, I think the definition of television simply expands. I don't know that, when we say television, it means, it has to go, over, QAM to the consumer through a cable box. Mm-hmm. Why is that so different than going over IP to a connected device? So television, in my mind, is television. So I think it continues. I think it flourishes. Mm-hmm. But if you're talking about linear television, I think that also continues. The reality is I think it will always be part of the marketing mix. So, it may not be the largest part of the marketing mix in 20 years, but, the reality is there are different components of a marketing mix and you need all of them, at least in my experience, to make it work. And I think TV is still exceptionally effective.
Right. Do you see anything in the near-term horizon that if you are a marketer, technologically is going to change things that they need to pay attention to, or perhaps having paid attention to might gain advantage from being first to leverage? Are there new technologies coming in video that are worth knowing about?
I think there's a couple of things. I know one of the innovations that we spend a lot of time on is when you think about OTT video and ad insertion, a lot of work and a lot of technological innovation happened to insert ads into video on demand. And I think people have figured out how to do that really, really well. However, inserting ads into live events is much more treacherous. If you watch the consumer experience, you watch the flaws that happen, they're way, way higher. So we've actually, being that we primarily have come at it as a subscription business where ad revenue is important, but it's a portion of the overall revenue that we generate, we've been building technology to protect that experience, both for advertisers and consumers, and create sort of a more effective medium to insert, dynamically insert ads into live events. So I think that's one thing that's very positive, because when you think about it, if you're inserting ads into video and you're killing somebody's ability to watch that video, I think it's going to have the opposite effect of what you're looking for. You want the ad to elegantly be inserted, get your message across, and then allow people to go back to the programming that they want to watch.
Right.
So I think that's one area. The other area of innovation that we've been thinking about is how do we take the data and really use it in a really, really effective way so we can provide, great results for advertisers.
All of us are now familiar with the programmatic display space, which has, grown up over the last 10 or so years. It's extremely sophisticated, complicated, fraught, but it works. And P&G was a leader early in this space. And it is true now that you can buy an audience, you can instantaneously inject, unique ads against segments of that audience in a fluid way. You get data from that and, lather, rinse, repeat. Will that ever be true in this new television world where you can identify audience in real time and just start testing and changing the ads and knowing that all just works on the back end?
I think it can. I think there are other components of the equation. So I think that method is working and will continue to work. I do think one of the other components, though, is the state of mind that the viewer is in. And I think, there are certain states of mind that are better and certain states that are worse. And I think that's going to need to be, added into the equation.
I am pro-context. Love that concept. So lastly, I want to ask you about your former employer. This is Amazon. You worked at Amazon and prior to BAMTech and Disney. What was that like? What's it like working? I mean, Amazon is one of these black boxes I think people are really interested in, and clearly they are a significant competitor to almost everybody in almost everything. So, is Amazon going to be a competitor to Disney streaming services? You've worked there. Is it a place that we should fear, respect, embrace?
I think when I think about Amazon, I think the best way to describe the company is it's awesome. The reality is the ambition of the company is vast. The intelligence of the people is also vast, and I found it personally to be a great experience. It's a company that's very focused on consumers and on scaling businesses. So on one hand, as a consumer and as if you're a supplier or we use AWS for example, they're a great partner, and I can only say good things about my experience working there.
Yeah. You're not afraid of them at all.
I'm not afraid of them. I think, what I've found is there's always opportunities for people who are innovating. You see big companies like, oh my God, nobody's gonna be able to compete with them. And then next thing you know, someone comes out of nowhere. And
Right.
Amazon's a good example. Like, who would have thought Amazon in the early days could compete with Walmart?
Right.
Oh, there's no way. And then next thing you know, they're competing with Walmart.
Yes.
And you've seen this in multiple spaces.
Right.
And I think as the internet has evolved, the time for the new guy to be able to disrupt the incumbent has shortened. I think it took decades, many decades ago, and now it takes years, single-digit years.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We have time for one question from the audience. I know that there's one over here. Can we run a mic if possible? But otherwise, we don't have a lot of time. So just.
How does Disney organize startups compared to your other more established businesses? How do you organize and manage them?
Sure. So what Bob did not too long ago, in light of our sort of new ambition, is he created a new business segment called Direct to Consumer and International. And in this business segment, he put our direct to consumer businesses, as well as our global ad sales organization, as well as our content distribution organizations. And what it did was it aligned the key parts of our businesses to allow us to focus on them and build these businesses on a global basis.
Right.
So it's not some small little thing over here trying to incubate. We're part of the core.
Awesome. I wish we could do more questions, but unfortunately we did run out of time. Michael, thank you so much for coming and giving us a little insight into Disney.
Thank you very much. Thank you.